Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahushai, Bayishim, Barakah Kodash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh Bayishim Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who ruled and teach well. And peace and salutations to Ya'akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the Brother Raya with another video, and I'm going to start it off by profiling this video from the Common Sense Show YouTube channel titled, Are Reservists Receiving Call-Up Notices? And at the beginning of this video, Dave Hodges speculates that this information he's been getting could be hearsay, but we know through the scriptures that the time will come where U.S. military reservists and active duty members will be called up to fight in this upcoming World War III, which will involve Russia and China. And even then, that's not going to be enough. Here's the Wikipedia page for the United States Armed Forces, and here's the total number of active duty and reserves. For active duty from all branches, you have 1,347,106, and for total reserves, 807,562. Again, that's not going to be enough to fight against the combined armies of Russia, China, and other nations that the U.S. and its allies are going to have to go against. So a draft will be instated to build up their numbers. This is 2 Esdras chapter 16, verse 33 to 34. The virgins shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. The women shall mourn, having no husbands. Their daughters shall mourn, having no helpers. In the wars shall their bridegrooms be destroyed. In this upcoming World War III, ultimately the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, or that War of Armageddon over in the Middle East, and their husbands shall perish of famine. And if you're a U.S. soldier in the military right now, or you get drafted to go fight over in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, you better come to terms with the fact that that's going to be your final resting place. And all these horrific calamities are quickly coming upon us because we're living in the last seconds of these last days, in the last seconds of the rulership of the heathens, chiefly of Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, before the second coming of Yahushai HaMashiach, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called Jesus Christ, who is coming to save the elect of his people and his people only, the true children of Israel, who are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, as well as the Israelite foreigners who look like these heathen nations, and to put the final nail in the coffin of the rulership of you heathens, again, chiefly Esau, Edom.
Okay, I want to mention here right off the top that this is speculative, but there's enough smoke here that I feel I need to bring this out, and I'm coming to you for verification. And I want to know how many people are giving these particular notices. And let me see, I'm going to pull up the email here real quick, and I've received 4 of these now in 2 days, 3 today. Here's the latest one I got, and I'm going to leave the name out for obvious reasons. Just finished talking to a Christian truck driver that comes to my place of work. And we're going to get into what happened next here on the Common Sense Show after I tell you I'm Dave Hodges, and we're the show that's freeing America one enslaved mind at a time, the Common Sense Show. And thank you for all your support you've shown through the years. And we're brought to you by Backup Solar Bank. This is solar powered right here, folks. And you just put it out in the sun and it will charge your phone in nothing flat. It's got an emergency strobe light to it. It's been 50% off. Now they're taking end of the month extra 20% off. And this thing is so unbelievably inexpensive, you can't pass on it. The coupon code is Dave20. And this thing can save lives. In fact, it powered our show last night because I had to use hotspot and film off my cell phone all at once. So I didn't have the juice to do that. And we had the lanterns out here lighting up the set, and the show must go on, as they say, and it went on. This thing, I love this thing. Go to the description box, click it on, make it part of your survival package. Listen, I'm not going to lay this out as definitive, but I've gotten 3 other emails like this, very, very similar, from different places in the country. So as I was saying, just finished talking to a Christian truck driver that comes to my place of work about the crazy mess going on in our world. His son is in the Navy and his wife is formal Army. My son is Air Force, and my husband is retired Air Force. And he had mentioned that veterans are beginning to get memos and are told to be prepared to be called to active duty in the near future. She mentions that her husband has not received such a notification yet. So what we're asking for here is clarification from you. I'm putting this out here, and I'd like to know if this is true. If it's true, we should be getting a deluge of responses over the next few days. If it's not true generally, it could be true specifically. Let me specify something. When they had the Cuban Missile Crisis, my father was actually then just out of the military, and he was working with captured German scientists. They actually took him for 2 weeks, and he had specified duties. I don't know if it's still classified, so I should be careful. But he had specified duties during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and until the crisis was over, plus about 3 days, he was gone from the family, gone from his normal place of work. He returned and went back to work. Now, that call-up was specific to his skill set that they needed. And you could call up people in the military for skill sets you need, but you're not doing a general call-up. Now, if it does turn out that this is a general call-up, I'm warning you, hide your sons, because this is going to be a draft. General call-up, I'm warning you, hide your sons, because this is going to be a draft. Not that this is a general call-up, I'm warning you, hide your sons, because this is going to be a draft.
And again, there will be a draft. 2 Esdras 16 and 34. In the wars shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, and their husbands shall perish of famine. And it says the virgins shall mourn, the women shall mourn, and the daughters shall mourn, because there's going to be scarcely few men left. And even these men in America that are going to get drafted are not going to be enough. A lot of you women are going to be drafted to go fight over in the Valley of Jehoshaphat as well. You've been seeing a lot of information come out talking about women join the military, and that's not all by coincidence. It's all by design. And hey, you women aren't built for the horrors that are about to come, so you're going to have a very hard time being in that foxhole next to these other men that were drafted to go fight and die over in the Middle East.
And I'm telling you right now, if we go to war with China, it
Which
could
will
be
happen.
a draft. Not could be, will be. Also, too, it's not just China we need to worry about. The domestic insurrection in this country has the potential, with embedded enemy forces in our country, that a call-up of reservists would be necessary to both defend the country and still maintain our national defense.
And hey, don't worry. While the U.S. military is out of the country over fighting in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, there's going to be NATO troops here, Russian and Chinese troops, as well as mercenaries patrolling the streets of America, putting down you Americans dead in the streets like dogs.
I think that's a second possibility. So let me leave this with you. Ask your friends who have veterans. Ask veterans. And let's see what we can find out if we can get to the bottom of this. Is this a specific call-up for skills? Or is this a general call-up and we got to go, uh-oh, hide the kids? Thanks for joining us. Please share this far and wide with your friends. Give us a thumbs up on the way out. And I just received notification tonight that our first TV network that we're on, Roku TV.
That's it with this video. Now I'm going to go to an article on antiwar.com titled, National Guard Reorganizes to Prepare for War with Russia and China. The move reflects the U.S.'s shift towards great power competition as outlined in the 2018 National Defense Strategy, Revelation chapter 9, verse 12. Behold, one woe is past, World War I, and 2 woes more come hereafter, World War II, which is past, and this upcoming World War III, which will be nuclear. The Army National Guard is reorganizing its brigades, moving most of them under the command of its 8th Division headquarters to prepare for large-scale conflicts with Russia or China, and both. The move will increase the Army's fully manned divisions that it can deploy from 10 to 18. The reshuffling of National Guard forces reflects the 2018 National Defense Strategy that outlined the Pentagon's shift away from counterterrorism to great power competition. A military confrontation with Russia, and it should say, and China, or peer competitors, as U.S. officials call them, would require much greater manpower than counterterrorism operations in the Middle East and North Africa. When you look at the national defense strategy and competition among near-peer competitors, that great power competition, there is a potential, really an inevitability, for large-scale combat operations. It could actually be division-level fights. Lieutenant General Daniel Hokanson, the director of the National Guard, said in an interview, actions and rhetoric coming from the Trump administration reflect the strategy outlined in the NDS. Although U.S. military operations in the Middle East show no sign of slowing down, there has been an increased military presence in the South China Sea to confront Beijing. While the administration announced troop cuts from Germany, the U.S. has also established a permanent military presence in Poland, and more troops might deploy to the Baltic states, closer to Russia's border. So as you can see, things are getting geared up for this upcoming third woe. And while there will be skirmishes here and there, the main fireworks are going to be in the Valley of Jehoshaphat over in the Middle East. This is Joel chapter 2, verse 20. But I will remove far off from you the Northern Army, the North American Army, the United States military, all branches, the Army, the Marines, the Air Force, the Navy, the National Guard, etc., etc., and will drive him into a land barren and desolate, the Middle East. And the main staging ground for this upcoming battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat is going to be Saudi Arabia, with his face toward the East Sea. And when we go to a map of the Middle East, here you have Saudi Arabia, and to the east you have the Persian Gulf, and to the northeast the Euphrates and Tigris River. And what's above the Persian Gulf? Iran, the main target of the state of Israel and the United States of America in the Middle East. And it's going to be those Amalekite Edomites calling themselves Israelis over in the land of Israel, who are going to drag the United States into a conflict with Iran. And what happened over the past year in 2019 and the earlier part of 2020, you had U.S. military personnel getting moved into Saudi Arabia as well as Iraq. And his hinder part toward the utmost sea, or behind him, the Red Sea. And his stink shall come up, and his ill savor shall come up, because he hath done great things. And that stink is going to be coming from all those dead bodies over in the Middle East during this battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. Not just U.S. military personnel, but all you other heathen militaries that are going to get gathered down into the Valley of Jehoshaphat. This is Isaiah 34. I'm going to read verse 1 through 3. Come near, ye nations, to hear, ye heathen nations, and hearken ye people. Let the earth hear, and all that is therein, the world, and all things that come forth of it. For the indignation of Yahweh is upon all nations, and his fury upon all their armies, mainly that northern army. He hath utterly destroyed them, he hath delivered them to the slaughter. Their slain also shall be cast out, and their stink shall come up out of their carcasses, and the mountains shall be melted with their blood. Back in Joel chapter 2, verse 20. And his stink shall come up, and his ill savor shall come up. This mass sacrifice that Yahweh Ba'Yishim Yahushai is going to make of you heathen militaries over in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. This is Joel chapter 3. I'm going to start at verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Come near ye nations to hear and hearken. And these Gentiles are the heathens. You Edomites are so-called white people. You Moabites are so-called Chinese. You Ishmaelites are so-called Arabs. You Ammonites are so-called Japanese. You Hamites are so-called Africans. Elamites are so-called East Indians, etc., etc. Prepare war. World War III, the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, war with Iran, the War of Armageddon. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. The militaries of all these different heathen nations. And again, that draft is coming. In the wars shall their bridegrooms be destroyed. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I am strong. And as we just read back in that article on antiwar.com, the move reflects U.S. shift towards great power competition as outlined in 2018 National Defense Strategy. The Army National Guard is reorganizing its brigades, moving most of them under the command of its 8 Division headquarters to prepare for large-scale conflicts with Russia or China. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. All these different heathen militaries are getting geared up for a war that they know is coming. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen. Gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh. And those mighty ones are the death angels of the Most High, holding back this destruction, waiting to get the sign to release it. And they're going to release it once the mark of the beast, which is the RFID/NFC microchip implant, is mandatorily implemented. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get you down, for the press is full. The fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of Yahweh is near in the valley of decision. And the reason Yahweh by Yishim Yahushai is gathering you heathen nations down into the valley of Jehoshaphat is to judge you for touching the apple of his eye, the children of Israel, again the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. And the top nation that did that were you Edomites. Jump up to verse 1. For behold, in those days and in that time, and these are the days and times we're living in right now, the last seconds of these last days, the last seconds of the rulership of the heathens, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah, the southern kingdom, or the so-called Negroes, your so-called African Americans, Haitians, Dominicans, Jamaicans, West Indies, and Jerusalem, the northern kingdom, or the so-called Latinos and Native Americans, the elect from each tribe's waking up and coming back together and hearkening under their power, Yahweh by Yishim Yahushai. I will also gather all nations, these heathen nations, Edomites, Moabites, Ammonites, Ishmaelites, Hamites, Elamites, and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage, Israel. And when you go into that word plead in the Strongs, it doesn't mean that the Most High is coming with a bouquet of roses to ask you heathens to nicely let his people go. It means that the Most High is bringing a vindictive punishment on you for touching the apple of his eye. Whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. And you heathens did scatter the nations of Israel among the nations. You took the southern kingdom from the west coasts of Africa and brought them to the Americas, and you took the northern kingdom from the Americas and brought them to Europe and other nations, all through the transatlantic slave trade, and parted my land. And you can clearly see that the land of Israel is parted today amongst those Amalekite Edomites calling themselves Israelis and those Palestinian Arabs who are Ishmaelites. Neither of you squatters belong in that land. And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink. And this is speaking of slavery. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to go into the history books and see that so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans served the worst form of slavery in all of human history. And even after slavery ended, you heathens, chiefly you Edomites, continued to afflict the children of Israel all the way up until today. You Edomites put Planned Parenthoods into our neighborhoods to advocate for our women to get abortions. You give us poisonous food and water to eat and drink. The Israelites are the last hired and the first fired, and your media puts out this image to take our people away from their power and their identity, to make them think that they're everything else under the sun but the children of Israel, to think that they're African Americans, Hispanics, Mexicans, Native Americans, niggers, spics, tontos. You give them a gangster culture and black culture to turn them into just thugs and animals out here. You make Jake's situation so bad out here that they're desperate, and then you flood their neighborhoods with drugs and guns so they have no other alternative to turn to. And these cops gun down our men, women, and children down dead in the streets. You heathens got a lot to pay for, and Yahweh Ba'ishim Yahushai is quickly bringing that recompense onto your own heads. Your economies are beginning to collapse globally, your societies are collapsing, and we're not even knee-deep in Jacob's trouble yet, where there's going to be massive famines, even more pestilences, race wars, civil wars, and then you have the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat to look forward to. And after the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat takes place, you heathen nations are going to go into 1,000 years of hardcore bondage and slavery under the children of Israel in the kingdom of heaven, which is going to be eternal. But after that first 1,000 years, you heathen nations outside of Esau, Edom, are going to be able to return to your lands and live under the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Ba'ishim Yahushai. You're still going to be under our subjection, but you're not going to get the fate of Esau, Edom. After that first 1,000 years, all you Edomites are going to be gathered up and cold from this planet with fire. So with this video, I hope you sincere Akim are edified. Just keep strong and keep pushing this word. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathens, chiefly Esau, Edom. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babol, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.